So our next unit, I guess you could really say it's kind of a mini unit because the the whole focus of this unit is I want you guys to be able to write the equation of a line. These equations that I've been giving you to graph, like the y equals 1 half x plus 4, I want you to be able to come up with those. Okay? These aren't things that I just pull out of thin air. They're actually found by doing a little bit of arithmetic. And kind of the cool thing is it's a process. It's the same every single time. I've been doing it the same way since 8th grade when I was in 8th grade. So it's never going to change. There are different ways to do it depending on what type of equation you want to get out of it, which we talked about that a little bit. You know, there's like 5 or 6 different actual equations of the line, and you can convert from one to the next, but the slope intercept one is the one that we're focusing on because it's easy to graph. So kind of the same thing here. We're going to focus on the slope intercept ones because it's pretty much the easiest one to come up with, and we're still going to graph them. So it's kind of a win-win. The information that you need to pull out of this is kind of twofold. You need to be able to come up with the slope so you know how to move between your points, and you need to be able to come up with your y-intercept, which is where your line is going to cross the y-axis. Again, if you've graphed these things, you're just coming up with the information to graph and kind of encoding it into the equation. So these equations have 2 numbers in them. The generic kind of y equals mx plus b that everybody has seen, the y and x variables are placeholders for your coordinates that you're going to graph, your x and y coordinates. The m is the placeholder for your slope, and the b is the placeholder for your y-intercept, or where it crosses the y-axis. And all of that stuff means something. So we're going to try and carefully find this. So what I'm looking at here, I need to actually come up with numbers for that one and that one. The y is built in, the x is built in, and we're going to be able to trade from point to point to point. So the first thing I need you guys to be able to do is to calculate the slope. All right, there's your slope formula again, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We've done that before. It was on your test last week, so that shouldn't be anything new. If you're not familiar with that, go back and watch the slope video. But here we go. So first things first, you need to come up with slope. That's step number 1. So I'm going to take my x and y coordinates here, and I'm going to set them up in my formula. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So my slope is 3 over 1. And you can leave it like that, or you can change it to a whole number if you would like. I don't care. The only thing that you have to stay away from is no mixed numbers. So if you're solving out your slope and you get something like 7 over 2, don't make that 3.5. I would prefer whole numbers, so I'm going to change that down to a 3. But when it comes time to graph these, you need the 3 over 1. All right, step 1's done. Step 2, and this is where it gets a little weird. We're going to go back to this kind of generic y equals mx plus b, and we're going to replace 3 of those variables with actual numbers. All right, I'm going to replace the y variable, the m variable, and the x variable with numbers that we have on hand. Now, the one we're going to be solving for is the b. So for your x and your y, literally pick one of your 2 points. You can use -1, 1, or you can use 0, 4. Me personally, I'm going to go with 0, 4 because it has a 0 in it. Arithmetic with a 0 is super easy, so I'm going to pick that. That way when I have to add and multiply and all that jazz, it's a whole lot easier because there's a 0 built into it. So my y coordinate is 4, so I'm going to replace my y variable with 4. M is my slope, so there's my 3. My x coordinate is 0, so I'm going to replace x with 0, plus b. So I've set up this equation where I traded out 3 variables for actual numbers. So now I've got 4 equals 0 plus b. That m times x part, the 3 times 0, regardless of what equation you're solving for, the m times x should always work out nice. If it's a 0, great. Otherwise, it's going to be a whole number of some sort. Otherwise, your y-intercept doesn't work out nice for us. So when I subtract out my 0, which seems kind of frivolous, but just to get in the habit of what you do, you're always going to subtract out whatever that number is. 4 minus 0 is 4. So my y-intercept is 4. That's step 3 right there. We solved for b. Okay, I replaced all my values. I worked it down with just a little bit of arithmetic to get my my y-intercept to be 4. The last thing you have to do is actually put it all together in the equation. You're going to leave the x and y alone. They're going to stay variables. So my equation for this one is y equals 3x plus 4. That's your equation of the line. Now, this whole week is going to be practicing this. So I'm going to give you a couple of these a day. You'll wind up graphing them by the end of the week on top of this, and we'll go through all that when we get to it.